remembering the bright, bleak future of Wall-E, 10 years later. The summer of 2008 broke history, and rebuilt it. America suffered through a bitter presidential election on the road to a globe-wrecking financial crisis. In theaters, cinematic generations were rising, and falling. Superheroes, Will Smith, George Lucas, Guillermo del Toro, Emma Stone, Mike Myers, Sisterhoods and Step Brothers, Batman, and ABBA, adaptations of TV shows we still tweet about, new installments of movie franchises studios won't stop rebooting, everything Hollywood was before, alongside everything it still is. In our weekly column 2000 Late, we'll explore the big hits and curious flops from a summer that has never really ended. Last week, the love guru couldn't ruin Mariska Hargitay, at least. Next week, Will Smith's last 4th of July movie. This week, critic at large Leah Greenblatt and TV critic Darren Franick discuss some wonderful robots. Leah: okay, Darren, I have seen your Speed Racers and your Narnias and your Maid of Honors. Just kidding. Why would I see Speed Racer? But I did read your and Chris Nashawati's excellent column about it, which was both more entertaining and less traumatic for my central nervous system. Now, I raise you a Wall-E. The movie doesn't need much introduction, does it? It earned more than $500 million at the global box office, won every award short of a Cable Ace and a Tony, including the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, and made thousands of small children beg their parents for a trash compactor for Christmas. I can't lie, I had to be dragged to see it, by you's former managing editor, no less. I just didn't super care about a robot who cleans up old industrial waste and talks to cockroaches. But 98 minutes later, I came out of the multiplex a new girl. Or at least a temporary groupie for sentient garbage bots. This film is brilliant. And I say that as someone who secretly thought that whole anatomy of a marriage scene and up that everyone else on this planet adores was sort of manipulative and corny. There's a timelessness to Wall-E's story of a scrappy little robot and his lady love, Eve, that just gets me, a kind of Buster Keaton Charlie Chaplin Mickey Mouse wonder to the near wordlessness of it all. Also, I would like to point out how prescient and subversive the narrative is, in its own way, about futurism and the environment and what relentless technology can do the human soul. Rewatching it now, I refuse to believe Denis Villeneuve did not screen this movie before he took on Blade Runner 2049, the dystopian skyline. The abandoned casino thing. The bionic femme fatale. But enough about me and my subreddit theories. Are you a fan? Darren, it's interesting to hear that you were trepidatious about Wall-E, Leah. In hindsight, I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a Pixar movie. The cutest little robot in the post-apocalypse arrived in cinemas in the midst of the animation company's run of all-timers, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, and in fairness, Cars seemed much better before the sequels. The first half hour of Wall-E is, like, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Cinematic Fantasy, a peppy, gorgeous, family-friendly romp through the abandoned trash pile ruins of our planet. It almost feels as if director Andrew Stanton, and Pixar as a whole, were responding to a series of dares. Can you start a blockbuster cartoon with a basically dialogue-free opening act? Can you construct a story with a hard left turn, sending the characters to space and introducing a whole demented far-future human society? Can you do all this with a couple characters who barely speak, who barely have definable faces? Can you make it a romance? Can you also make it a compelling portrait of consumerism run amok? I love your comparison of this film to Blade Runner 2049, which I will now always describe as Wall-E but 6 hours long. And I think you are right to call out the genuinely subversive qualities of this film. In some ways, I think this was as deep and dark as Pixar's ever gotten, way more bleak than the hand-holding inferno of Toy Story 3. And much more airy than the spectacularly charming Deathverse and Coco. There's something spiky about Wall-E that makes it a more rewarding rewatch.